folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today I'm taking a look at my top 10 favorite victory conditions for games. So when it comes to games, there's only a few ways to win a game. Most of us, maybe it was having the most money or be the first one to get to the finish line as you roll and move down the thing. But there's a lot of different nuances on these ways to win. So I thought I'd talk about my top 10, although it nags in my memory and it's like, no, there's probably one you're missing in here. Well, so be it. But I thought this would be an interesting thing to talk about. Here are my favorite ways to win games. Number 10 is secret points. And what I mean is, throughout the course of the game, you are gaining points in various ways, but your opponent really doesn't know how many points you have. I really tend to like games that do this because it stops analysis paralysis. I can't sit there and go, well, you have 57 points, I have 55. All I need to do is get 3 points to win. Some people don't like this. I don't even mind if a lot of your points are open, but a lot of points are secret, whether I might draw a few cards, which are worth some points at the end of the game. And not knowing exactly how many points someone has will tend to bring the game down to a much more level playing field, at least speed-wise. Like, hey, this is how the game's going to work. Take it or leave it. Number 9 is player elimination. Now, wait a minute, you're saying. That's one of the worst things in a game. Have you ever played Risk and you were eliminated and watched people play for 4 hours? Well, yes, and I hate that just as much as me. I will say I also hate pseudo-player elimination, where you're not out of the game, but you might as well be, as you're pushed down to nothing and then have to keep playing the game for 3 hours. I think that's worse. But I don't mind player elimination when it's done in a quick, fast way. For example, King of Tokyo, which is a game I highly enjoy, I'd much rather win this game through player elimination than through points. It's just fun to knock other people down in a short brawl type sort of way. These games where you're just going after each other, whether it's dice thrown or just back and forth, and knock the other person out, a two-player game, trying to take the other person down to 0 health. As long as the game is quick, I find these games to be a lot more enjoyable. Number 8 is team meeting your goal. Now, this is a team versus another team style game. That team victory I find incredibly satisfying. Captain Sonar, where a whole team is working together to take out the other submarine. Or even if it's a one versus all and the all group finally catch Mr. X in Scotland Yard or what have you. That coming together, that moment where you stand up and you high five around the table, your team coming together to reach whatever their goal is incredibly satisfying. If you want to even hone this down further, catching the bad guy. It's super satisfying to catch that person as they're running around silently through the night and you're trying to figure out where they are, and as a team you come together and figure out exactly who they are. Number 7 is racing to a point. Racing games. I like being the first to get to something. Now, there are a lot of racing games where it might be the first to get 6 green stones is the winner. That's kind of a racing game, and I like that too. It gives you this whole thing. Have you ever played a game where someone has 256 points and you have 33? And yet you keep playing? Well, that can happen in a race game too, where someone's really far ahead. I especially like a race game where I always feel like I have a chance to catch up if I'm lucky. But a race game, from zooming around a track with horses and or cars to just a game where you need to accomplish these 8 things before you finish, that whole be the first to get something I find to be enjoyable, sometimes more than just collecting the most points. Number 6 is survive. All you gotta do to beat this game is live another day. Now, this is cooperative games for the most part. We're working together, bad guys are attacking, and Ghost Stories or Shadows over Camelot, and all we need to do is make it through the night. That's kind of the way it feels. Like, it's just, there's waves and waves and waves of bad things happening, but eventually the sun will rise. Eventually the reinforcements will get here, and we just got to make it just that little bit. And it's excruciating, the gameplay, but that victory is so sweet when you're like, yes, the last turn has done it, and I still have 2 people on the board. Yes! Survival. I find this to be very exhilarating. It is a lot of fun. Number 5 is to meet a personal goal. I like games that give each person a very specific thing to do. Sometimes they're very esoteric games, like there's a game called Lifeboat where you're trying to throw one person off the lifeboat and keep another person on the lifeboat. And one of those people could be yourself, and you're trying to meet this very specific personal goal. I like these personal goal games. In fact, Cosmic Encounter has a few aliens like that. The masochist will win if all their ships are destroyed. TikTok will win if they get to a certain time. I like these personal goals because they make you feel like you're doing something different. And sometimes it's fascinating to me how the game has a very specific path that it's following. Like, we are all trying to do this, but you also can win if you do this other thing. I find that to be very intriguing and fun. And so these personal goals and how they mix and intermingle with the main game is a fun victory condition for me. Number 4 is variable winners. Very specifically, it means there might be one winner, there might be 6. And you say, Vasel, is this Cosmic Encounter you're talking about? Well, sure. But it's not just Cosmic Encounter. The old Diplomacy had this. Dune, the board game, has this. There's not a lot of games that do this, but I always find it fascinating when there might be one winner or there might be 5. Bang is kind of an example of this, where the renegade might win or the sheriff and the deputies might win. And I like this idea of, hey, let's do this together. I often shout when I do board game reviews, and if there's a tie, it says everyone rejoices in their shared victory. I'm never happy with that. You say, well, that doesn't match. Well, yeah, because the game has a singular person, and if we happen to tie, it's really basically saying, well, I'm not sure who won. We weren't trying to achieve a tie. But if that's in the game itself, where we can suddenly start working together to win, I really like that and find it to be a lot of fun. Number 3 is something I make fun of all the time, but I like it, and that's point salad. I don't know why I like this so much, but I think it's because I like rewards. So nowadays in video games and a lot of other things, there are, hey, you've completed this objective, you've completed this goal, you've done this, here's your reward. And that's what point salad is. It says you do this, you get points, you do that, you get points, you do that, you get points, you do this, you get points. And that's fun because you're like, woo, I did a whole lot of this thing and I got a whole lot of points. I might not have got a lot as you, but it feels like I met a personal goal. And there's a lot of games that give me that satisfaction of getting points. And maybe there's an optimal path. Well, I know there's an optimal path because somebody's going to win. But getting points for a whole bunch of things, and we laugh about it and we call it points out because whatever you do, you get points. But I have to admit, I enjoy it because it just makes me feel good. No matter what I do, I'm going to get something from it. Number 2 is solving a puzzle, completing a puzzle. Now, this is escape room games for sure, right? We need to escape from this room, escape from this scenario. We figure out how to do it, we win. But also deduction games where I'm trying to solve the puzzle as to who done it. And I'll tell you, when the wheels click and you're like, it was him with that weapon in this place on this date, boom! I love it. That feeling, that euphoria it gives me is so exciting. It's so neat to be able to do that. It's also fun like in a cooperative setting where you're like, and now we've escaped, yes, from this thing. That deductive solving this big puzzle, figuring out the solution to a problem together. My second favorite victory condition. And my favorite victory condition is what I call non-traditional. And this is where you can possibly win the game another way than the way that the game intends it to be played. Now, I've already kind of dealt on this earlier with personal goals, but these are ways that often are included in the game. They'll say something like, this is how you win the game, by the most points. Also, you can win the game by doing this, this, and this. And then I always look at it and go, how can I do this, this, and this? A good example, this is Seven Wonders Duel. The main way of winning Seven Wonders Duel is through points, but you can also have a science victory or a military victory. Now, if you play the game a lot, you'll know that those victories don't happen very often. But man, do I strive towards getting those, because that alternate victory condition that can possibly end the game is so fascinating. Liberte from Martin Wallace was a game like this, where you were trying to get the most points through elections and battles, but you could also have a revolution or a counter-revolution, and then you could win even if you were behind and losing. And it's at almost a shoot the moon style. Maybe that would be a better term for this. That shoot the moon, like in hearts. You're trying not to get hearts at all, but that if I get all the hearts, then suddenly I get a ton of points. I love that sort of thing. I love that, trying to win through a very unconventional methodology, which the game doesn't necessarily say you should do, but if you pull it off, you get the points and maybe win the game. I love that, and I wish more games did it. So those are my top 10 things that, I like this victory conditions in games. There's a whole ton of them. There's a whole lot of different ones. Tell me what your favorites are in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower Top 10s.